Oh yeah, sure, when a little kid wears a cape in public, everybody finds it cute, but when I do it, it's creepy. Hey everyone, David here. Along with getting into the fighting game genre, along with those anthology of fighting games that I've been meaning to play, and yes, an Injustice Gods Among Us review is coming, and I will be playing that game very soon. But before I do, I thought I would give a whack, or at least another whack, at role-playing games, RPGs. And who does RPGs better than the Japanese? So I knew that I had to play Ni no Kuni, The Wrath of the White Witch. Ni no Kuni is a PlayStation 3 exclusive, so I thought that there was something rather special there. And to make it even more special, this game was created in collaboration with Studio Ghibli, or Ghibli, however you pronounce it, who are known to have produced some of the most beautifully animated and very renowned Japanese films that have really played a key role in animation here in the Western culture, like Spirited Away, or Kiki's Delivery Service, or Howl in the Moving Castle, or however that movie was called. I can't remember 100%, but it was titled sort of that way. And I'm familiar with those movies, and I'm familiar with that kind of animation. So when they said that they were going to implement that kind of animation and that kind of storytelling into a video game, I thought that that was actually pretty neat. And so now here I am to finally talk about said video game, Ni no Kuni. And in the story of Ni no Kuni, a young boy named Oliver finds himself in a world different from his own, with all these different characters and creatures and magic itself. But he also has to face his destiny of defeating the White Witch, who threatens this very land with her darkness. It sounds simple, but there's actually different layers to the complexity of the story that really does build a mythology within this world that I really did enjoy. But I can't get into them without getting into some spoilers, so I'm going to let you discover that for yourself. And along with that mythology that gets complex as the story goes along, it's simple to understand. It's nothing very difficult to comprehend. But along with that, you also got these variety of memorable characters, from the main ensemble cast to some of the characters that you see in the background that make up this world, along with a couple of great twists, some humor that's never lowbrow, and a whole lot of heart, which Studio Ghibli has come to be known by. Now personally, I never found this to be so, but I feel like maybe some people who play this game will find the premise of the story, or at least some of the details within the story, in terms of how some of this magic works and what Oliver needs to do with this magic, a bit too cutesy, a little too a little hammy, I don't know. Cutesy is the best term that I can come up with some of the details within this story, because some people will look at it and be like, man, this is some straightforward kid stuff. Personally, it never bothered me because I felt invested in the story, and I felt comfortable with the mythology that the magic in this movie set up. But in this movie, I just said movie, this video game, because this game does remind me an awful lot of the Studio Ghibli movies with its writing and its presentation, which I'm about to get into. But some people may find it just a little too much when the elements of the heart come into play. And as much as I enjoyed the writing and the story of this game, I did find the ending to be a little problematic. I felt like there was a boss battle at the very, very end that just comes out of nowhere, and they explain it in such a rushed way that I'm like, oh, that almost doesn't really make that much sense. There's once again another twist during that ending that I thought it was a little predictable, because as soon as they introduced a particular element earlier in the story, I'm like, okay, that's probably what's going to happen. And sure enough, that is what happened. And I felt like the resolution after this big climax was way rushed, based on how much they build up that climax to be. I was expecting a resolution that of like the Lord of the Rings movies, where it takes its time to say, hey, we are wrapping up the story. Instead, without getting into too much detail, it's almost like everybody just said thank you to each other and then roll credits. But if Studio Ghibli, I'm going to call it Ghibli because I feel like most people have referred to it as Ghibli, so that's what I'm going to go by. If Studio Ghibli is involved in a project, whether it be a video game or a movie, it's going to look beautiful. And Ni no Kuni is no exception. The animation and the presentation and the design and the way these characters are designed and the way this whole world is designed is absolutely gorgeous. The way everything is colorized and the design is very vibrant, very rich. It's something that translated very well to video games. And one of the most beautiful aspects about the presentation for this game would have to be the score. The musical score for this game is breathtaking. There's numerous pieces in the score that I actually would not mind having in my iPod because they're that memorable, they're that catchy, and very earworm-like. And they're just composed very well. There's something that belongs in a much more rich and epic motion picture. And it's something that an awful lot of composers don't take the time to craft when it comes to a video game, but the composer for this game went out of his way to compose a very beautiful score for just this beautiful video game. And while we're on the subject of the audio for this game, the voice work for the game is for the most part good. There's a couple of instances where I felt like the delivery of certain lines was a little flat or a little cheesy, but for the most part, the voice cast does a good job with the characters that they're playing. My only nitpick with the way this game looks is that because Studio Ghibli is involved, there's certain cutscenes where they went ahead and they animated themselves, in which it's like a 2D animated cutscene. Like hand-drawn, not computer animated like the majority of this game is, because it switches between different forms of cutscenes. And that's what I found a little bit jarring about this game, is that there were certain instances where you can kind of tell that this is a Studio Ghibli animated sequence where it's hand-drawn and in 2D. But then right after that, even if the cutscene was on screen for just a few seconds, it would cut to a cutscene where the characters are no longer actually verbally talking, but you got the subtitles and they're just standing still, and then they would cut to a much more diverse and cinematic cutscene where the characters are now actually talking and the camera is switching between different angles, and then they would put in another 5-second, well, not a 5-second, that's a little exaggerated, but maybe like a 20-second clip of a Studio Ghibli animated sequence, and then they would cut back to the much more conventional 3D animated cutscene that the developers for this game, which I'm blanking on the name right now, created. And it was just a little jarring. It reminded me of movies that have certain sequences, or at least certain bits of footage that were shot in IMAX cameras, and then you go see the movie and see it in IMAX, and you can see the switch between, you know, IMAX footage and then now traditional movie footage that were filmed on 35mm cameras. It's a little daunting at times. After a while, my brain, me personally, is able to process the imagery here, and I can almost not see it. Almost. Just recently I saw Transformers, and it was the same thing. Back and forth, back and forth. Christopher Nolan does that with The Dark Knight, Dark Knight Rises, and I felt like they were kind of doing a similar thing in this game where it would just switch in between these different forms of animation to where it was starting to get to me a little bit. Now, this is an RPG. But more to the point, this is a Japanese role-playing game, which means that it's an RPG through and through. I timed myself because there's actually a little timer where you can actually check to see how many hours you have poured into this game, especially every time that you save the game. I clocked in at a total of, I believe, 68 hours on Ni no Kuni. It's that big, and it's that rich and deep in content of what you can do within the world of Ni no Kuni. The RPG system in this game is very rich and detailed and diverse, but it's also very kid-friendly because of the way that the game is presented, whether it be through its animation, or its story, or its involvement with these characters that are of younger age. Obviously, kids are going to be attracted to this game, so they made the system here to cater to both younger and older audiences alike. It's never too complex so that a novice in role-playing games is not going to be able to understand it. No, they hold your hand just enough so that you can get the gist of how to make things work in this game, whether it be leveling up your character, or leveling up the creatures that tag along with you, or you're able to mix all these different potions. It's very complex, while at the same time never becoming too confusing to lose the gamer. It's nothing like in Dark Souls where you need to do this and this and this and that. It's so intricate that it's going to lose you, and you're going to be like, wow, this is definitely just for hardcore players. This is something that I think anybody can get into, but you definitely need to be patient so that you can comprehend everything that's going on. Now, the combat system in this game is something somewhat unique, while at the same time not being that original, Basically what it is, it's a real-time strategy combat system in which you really need to strategize how you're going to be able to defeat your opponent and what kind of spells and items you need to use, but it's all during real time. It's not turn-based like Final Fantasy where you got your two characters and you each take turns throwing things at each other or using different items. It's all happening in real time, so you better hurry and think fast when it comes to your strategizing. And that's actually something that I really liked about this game, because it made the pacing for the game a lot easier to go with, and it never hits that lull where, because it's turn-based, you're gonna be like, okay, now I need to spend all this time choosing this. Okay, come on, go. Okay, now you've done it. It has this dynamic where you get somewhat of a sense of urgency, where you're like, okay, I need to choose this and I need to choose that. Otherwise, he or she is going to have the opportunity to use this spell or use this item and rejuvenate their health or be able to kill me if I don't dodge it quick. And so adding these two elements together really do flow and really do make the gameplay, and most notably the combat gameplay in this game, very dynamic and something very engaging. Now notice I said somewhat unique but not totally original, because one of the elements in the game, in terms of the gameplay and the combat, is the acquirement of familiars, which are these different little creatures that tag along with you on your journey as you navigate through the story of this game. And these creatures are able to level up and evolve and gain new abilities. Does that sound familiar at all to you? Yeah, when it initially came out, I remembered all these different people saying that, yeah, it's Pokemon. And I'm not gonna lie, it did feel a little Pokemon-ish. But because they throw in the element of real time rather than turn-based like Pokemon really is, it made it different enough to where I was able to go with it and not, it didn't take me out and say, oh my god, these people totally ripped off Pokemon. Now take the next two things that I'm going to refer to as either a negative or a positive, because even I myself cannot figure out which one's which, because I really don't know how to categorize them. But let's just say that these next two things really do classify Ni no Kuni as a hardcore RPG. And that is that sometimes the game forgets that certain kids are going to be attracted to this type of game and are going to want to actually play through it. I understand that you're able to toggle the difficulty level in the settings menu, but there's certain instances that even at a normal or possibly even easy difficulty, the game forgets that kids are going to be playing it, and it goes into some rather hardcore RPG territory, to where I'm throwing my controller and I'm becoming so frustrated that I needed to take breaks. And when I say breaks, I don't mean I'm going to take a 2-hour break, I'm going to go eat, I'm going to go exercise or do something and then come back. I'm talking days to where I needed to play something else. Otherwise, I'm going to burn out and I'm not going to want to finish this game. I played 2 other whole games in the process of playing the 65-hour game. I played, what was it, Splinter Cell Blacklist and Beyond Two Souls. I rented them from Redbox, and I played these 2 games in between my process of beating Ni no Kuni, because there were certain instances where I knew that I needed to spend hours upon hours leveling up Oliver and leveling up his friends, as well as the familiars that they carry with them, in order to defeat this one boss. And I knew that if I just kept on going, I'm going to lose my freaking mind. So I needed to take a rather lengthy break from this game to be able to complete it. So I think it's something that you guys need to know before initially starting this game. And another thing is that when it comes to this game being very hardcore RPG, is that the save system may also be a little bit frustrating for some, because it's that kind of system to where you need to reach a particular area and hit this stone and activate it, and boom, there you go. It's like the Pokemon centers in Pokemon. You need to reach this pedestal or this little tombstone from the ground, hit the X button, and it asks you, do you want to save? And that's how you save. Which means that if, theoretically speaking, a power outage happens right before you get to that point and you just got through this area where all these different enemies that were significantly stronger than you, and you managed to defeat them, and it took you all this time to level yourself up and defeat them, and you're about to hit that save point, but then the power goes out. Oh my god. But I can honestly say that throughout the game, I always felt like there was a glimmer of hope that I'm going to be able to beat it. Like I said, there's that very far-fetched idea that if I level myself up high enough, as long as it's going to take, I'm going to be able to progress through this game and going to be able to be a total badass and cast all these different spells and defeat every possible boss, but it's going to take a while. And it's very rewarding. The game rewards you with an awful lot of different things that you can use along your journey as you progress. And of course, much like a traditional RPG, once you beat the game, you get to free roam, you get to do all these different side quests that you didn't get to while doing the main story. Although I will have to recommend some of these side quests to be done while doing the main story, because they will present opportunities to boost your character up so that then you can progress through some of these more difficult moments within the game. My final complaint about the gameplay in this game would have to be that there were certain moments that felt, and I hate saying this term because I hate saying it, but they felt a little video gamey. It's like when I was talking about a comic book movie and I say it felt too much like a comic book, even though that could be used in either a good or a bad way. Same thing here. It could be used in a good or a bad way, but here I would have to say it's a much more negative manner, because there were certain moments where throughout the game I felt like it naturally progressed from one moment of the game to another, to where, oh, there's a boss fight, but it kind of makes sense that this boss is here, that's cool. There were a couple of instances where you can kind of tell, especially during that climax, where they just shove a boss because, hey, we're not going to let you get off that easy, we're just going to throw this boss battle in here because you're playing a video game. And there's this other instance where I could have landed in a particular area where I needed to get to, but because it's a video game, the game forces you to start from this area, and it didn't make sense because the way I was looking at it, I'm like, why can't I just go directly here? No, we're gonna force you to go through all these different things because it's a video game. I don't like it when games do that. Nonetheless, I felt like I went on this journey along with Oliver while playing this game, not only because of how long it was, but because this game really did invoke a feeling in me, not so much a feeling, but more of a reminder of a much more golden age of video games, to where it's really about the strategy and about the way you play the game and about the world that this game is able to create to get you invested, rather than all the badass stuff or all these different gimmicks that the game is able to throw at you. But at the same time, there's that trade-off to where they sacrifice some of the more quality aspects about the game. And fortunately, this game doesn't do that, and it's definitely one of the most memorable experiences that I've had playing the game. I don't really see myself playing it again, considering how much I've invested in it. I mean, it took almost months. But I will say that it's an experience that I'm never going to forget, and it's a game like no other. And for that, I give Ni no Kuni, The Wrath of the White Witch, a 9 out of 10. So let me know what you guys thought of Ni no Kuni, Wrath of the White Witch. If you have played it, but if you have not, and you like my review and would like to purchase the game, be sure to use the link in the description. It would be really cool if you did, because it helps quite an awful lot to my cause, which is doing more video game reviews of really late games. And as always, I thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you guys later.